when we get deep on life and self-awareness and happiness, that's the type of community that we've created. We've actually even hired out, we call it a happiness coordinator.
Wow.
Who just is there to make sure people are experiencing what they want to in their lives. So I consider this more of a life organization than a real estate company.
This is Stay Paid, the marketing podcast that gives listeners a competitive edge to stay motivated, find inspiration, and discover proven real-world tactics from some of the best marketers across the nation. Welcome to another episode of Stay Paid. I'm Joshua Stike along with Luke Acree. And before we bring on our guest today, we'd love it if you take a minute to subscribe to Stay Paid on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. If you're not already subscribed, while you're there, drop us a review along with a comment. We'll read it here on the show. Our guest today is Jason Martin, who's been selling homes in the D.C., Northern Virginia, and Maryland region for over a decade now. And Jason and his team have been recognized by the Wall Street Journal as one of the top teams in the entire country. Jason, welcome to Stay Paid. Thanks for being here.
Yes. Let's get everybody paid. Let's do that. How are we going to do that right now as fast as possible?
Yeah, that is the $1 million question, my man. I love it. Jason, loved meeting you at Janet's event there down in D.C.
Janet Brink.
Yeah, Janet Brink, who we had on the show. So definitely go check that out episode if you guys haven't heard that episode yet. She's a baller. She's amazing. But would love to kind of hear your story, right? You're running a top group. You're, on the Wall Street Journal as a top team. Tell us a little bit about your journey in getting into real estate and building out your business.
Yeah, so I get the question a lot, like how you got into real estate. What was the decision-making process? Truth be told, I was a sports anchor before I got into real estate in 2003.
Wow. What sports? And, what sports?
A local station in Augusta, Georgia.
Nice.
And was the number one guy in Wilmington, North Carolina. So
dang, man.
I went straight out of college, chased a childhood dream, and then a couple years down that path was looking for a new career because that one just didn't have you couldn't control your own destiny. Yeah. And while it was fun, it didn't give me the flexibility to do things I wanted to do in life, financially and family wise. And I called a good friend of mine who was a mortgage loan officer at the time and said, I need a career change. And he said, well, why don't you become a real estate agent? And I went like this. Get ready. You guys are going to want to take notes here. The process was so complicated. I went, I like people. I can't sit behind a desk. And I don't want my earning potential to be capped. Check. I got my real estate license, and 20 years later, here we are.
And in the barrier to entry, which we could probably debate whether it's a good thing or bad thing, it's not very hard. That's just, take a test. And you got your license. Go hang your license somewhere
30,
with a broker.
30 hours later, you're good.
Yeah,
that's it.
Exactly.
Yeah. It was easy enough for me to get into, so we jumped right in.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about kind of where you're at today. Like, what's the size of your team, and then volume-wise, stuff like that.
You got it. So we run between like 225, 250 units annually, and we'll run around 150 million in volume.
Whew.
There are 18 producing agents on the team. We have 2.5 full-time staff members, and that's how we run. I always tell everybody.
How do you get 0.5 staff members? By the way, I'd love to.
Well, we kind of like in my mind, it's a 0.5. It's like somebody that's not quite full-time, but 0.5.
Okay, I got you. Okay,
but she's awesome, by the way.
I'm imagining half a person, AI bot maybe.
Yeah, exactly. A half person. So no, don't tell her I said that. She's amazing. I can't get her full time. She's like, no, I won't do full time. I'll just do this. I'm like, I'll take it. So that's how we operate. But the other thing with that is like everybody, we do that for perspective, right? Like what's the volume? What's a team look like? And all that other stuff. I go to so many conferences. I'm in so many events with people. And I always tell everybody, you know what? That actually doesn't matter. Right? Like I think as an industry, we look at that just too much and go, oh man, they do all of this and they put us way up here. Like I can never get there. And like, to me, it only matters just to say who we're talking to. It doesn't matter in the context of your listeners of where they want to be and where they want to go with their business.
That's well said. Mm-hmm. Super well said.
So talk a little bit about that then. Yeah, in terms of where can an agent go today to start generating leads or start generating business? Like what are you seeing your agents having the most success, or what have you had the most success in terms of building that pipeline and
fulfilling that unlimited earning
Yeah.
potential?
So we're in a transition phase. For almost 20 years, our primary source of business has been sphere of influence. You guys have heard all this before, right? Past clients.
Never gets old, though.
You name it. We're like 70, 80% of that. We do not do Zillow. We don't do Realtor.com. We aren't paying for leads. We don't have ISAs. We don't operate in that format. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying we had never actually done that. The pivot we're in this exact moment in time, and this won't come as a surprise to either of you guys, is we are now starting to generate leads with video. And so we're going all in on video, whether that be Instagram or Facebook, whatever platform you choose. And that is very refreshing for us. We're like, ooh, there's a bigger way to get in front of a larger audience and generate leads in bulk and just double, triple, quadruple the database size. We're eyes wide open, and we're running at this thing with video right now.
What types of video, and then how does that actually look in terms of converting to a lead? Like, how is a video bringing in a lead?
Yep. So my business partner, his name is John Coleman. You guys can check him out on Instagram. It's Coffee with Coleman. The dude is so much better at it than I am. So he just runs with it, and I just follow his lead. And so his activity is daily, where he's touring homes and like, hey, take a look at this home. What can 1.5 million get you in Washington, D.C.? And he's really, really good at it. And he's his content is very consistent. And that's a word that I'm sure is going to come up in this conversation, consistency. So that's what we're finding is the key. It's no secret, but it's the one word. I bet if there's a word that you guys were able to pick out from speaking to a bunch of real estate agents, the one word that high achievers constantly repeat is that word. I guarantee you there's no other word. Yep.
It's the number one. It's so interesting you say that. When we have a Facebook group for our clients and they'll request, and we ask them as part of the requesting process, what's the one thing you struggle with the most in your marketing? And consistency is by far the number one response.
And isn't that the gap? Like I was thinking about this at 5:30 this morning, like, man, there is only one gap that everybody has. It's just that.
It is,
because I don't think what we do is complicated. I really don't.
Yep.
That sounds overzealous, but you can do whatever form of lead generation you want. In fact, we've got 18 agents on the team. We don't require them to do specific types of lead generation, period. I ask them to choose 3 or 4 things they want to do. Open houses. Some may want to do door knocking, very few, but whether they want to do cold calling, also not a huge fan, but the options available, we could Google it right now. So we could talk about lead generation, but really the only conversation in growth and development is consistency. And I view that, I'll plant this seed with you guys. I view that as a personal growth challenge, not as a business development challenge. And the lens in which we train our agents at the Jason Martin Group is, this isn't a business challenge. The business isn't complicated. This is a you challenge. This is a personal growth challenge. And how do you consistently want to show up in your life and then apply that to your business and watch your business go up 300-400%.
That's so well said, man. I told Megan, my wife, this morning, I said, the one good thing about 75 Hard, because I completed that challenge not too long ago, it's like the biggest takeaway for me was realizing how like inconsistent even someone like myself is in being consistent 75 days straight in something is like, you never do that for anything in your life. Like, it's like when I did the challenge, I realized, wow, there is nothing I do in my life besides the subconscious stuff that you don't even realize, like brushing in your teeth and stuff like that, that you do for 75 straight days. Like, literally reach out to your sphere for 75 straight days, cold call for 75 straight days, door knock for 75 straight days. I guarantee you, your business will skyrocket just because of that consistency there. But there's just so few things you ever do. And that's why 75 Hard was such a good kind of reminder to me of like, yes, man, if I want to make a change, you just got to commit for 75 straight days. And Alex Hormozi, who's blowing up all over the place, he calls it the 100. Basically, do for 100 basically 100 dials for 100 days or 100 push-ups for 100 days. Pick something, he calls it the rule of 100. And it's basically whatever you want to do it for 100 straight days and do it 100 times a day. And he says you will master and you'll become rich. He says you can't help but become rich and successful after doing it.
Yeah, I love his book, The $100 Million Offer. That's a fascinating. I got my kids reading that book right now, so hopefully something will stick with that. I'll do you one better. Just the other week, you're going to 75 into 100. That's an advanced level, right? That's a whole nother level. 2 weeks ago, I issued our team a 30-day challenge. And I said, hey, you guys can pick anything you want to do for 30 days. Some of them said, make their bed. Others said, I'm going to read every day. And then I told them right in that exact same conversation, I said, I promise you one thing. Here's the promise I'm going to give to you, that when we check back in 2 weeks, only 1%, 5%, 10% of you are going to have been able to stick with it for 2 weeks. And the 2 week call was just the other day. And guess who was right?
No way.
And
they didn't do it just out of defiance to prove you wrong. Yeah. They still.
No one did. No one, like two of us, right? And I'm one of them, whatever. I'm not any better than anybody else, but I'm saying, and then the interesting thing was, and this was an observation that we pointed out, and as I started to hear it, I heard wins coming in. They're like, well, I switched it from every day to weekdays, or I got most days. And I was like, oh, that's cool. So I said, here's what I'm hearing. You guys made progress, and you're giving yourself a free pass. And people are really good, and I'm working on this myself. I don't think I've got this figured out, but we ended up down this path. I think people are really good at finding ways to give themselves free passes and tricking their mind into believing they're making the progress they want to make with some steps. And in reality, you need 75 hard or 100 of something, and I think, man, that's the freaking game changer. So that's what I'm working on myself.
And you have to have a leader in your life, a mentor, someone that is willing to call you out. Like the most memorable story I know about Michael Jordan is when he shared with Tony Robbins that the person that made one of the biggest impacts on his life was the coach in high school that told him he didn't make the team. And he said, you're more talented than all the people, because Jordan was like, what do you mean I didn't make the team? I'm more talented than these people. Yeah, but you don't show up. You don't have the heart. And he goes, show up every single day for practice for the next year, and I'll guarantee you a spot on next year's team. And Jordan did it. And what is so remarkable about that story is years and years later, championship guy, right? He doesn't remember the people in the crowd that were telling him he was great. The person who made the big impact on his life that is the one who called him out on his BS, that called him out and said, hey, no, I'm not going to accept this from you. And that is so hard in leadership. You have 18 agents on your team. It is so hard to come in and be like, as much as I know you're not going to like me in this moment, I don't need you to like me. I'm going to tell you like it is. I'm going to be the ultimate truth teller. And in the end, you'll look back and go, wow, Luke, he helped change my life. Or Josh, he helped change my life because of what he called me out on. But everybody surrounds themselves with people who are like unicorns and rainbows. They don't put anybody in their life that will call them out and be hard on them.
Can I elaborate on that story a little bit? If my memory serves me correctly, that Jordan story, he went to Laney High School in Wilmington, North Carolina. And I actually got to interview not only Michael Jordan, I actually interviewed the coach, and it's terrible. It was 20 years ago. I can't remember the coach's name, but I interviewed both of those guys. So I got to interview Jordan.
Man.
It was pretty. And I got a picture, man. It's in my house. And I'm like, there it is. That's me and Jordan. I promise you. And so I asked Jordan this question, and this was when he was with the Wizards, and they were training in Wilmington, North Carolina. That was, post retirement one, I believe it was. And so I had to ask him a question. I said, Mike, do you see any of yourself in some of these younger players? And there were guys from North Carolina and some talented names you would remember 20 years ago. And he looks at me and he goes, not really, with full confidence. And I was like, that's Jordan. And that's how confident of a dude he was. And I love that story about Michael Jordan. And I'm with you. You could see it in his eyes. You guys watch The Last Dance, obviously.
Yeah, man. Yeah, just freaking unbelievable.
I've watched it 3 or 4 times. You can look in his eye. You could put it on mute and look in that dude's eyes and be like, I know what he's got.
Yeah, 100%. And you see it in all the, like the Tom Brady's, the Kobe Bryant's, the Tiger Woods. I'm sure, like I'm a sports guy too, so I'm sure you see it in other industries as well, or other categories of masters at their craft. But it's just something about them. And what I loved about The Last Dance and Jordan and stuff is like he would use every slight as a motivation. And that is huge, man. I don't know if you find that in your business. It's like an agent leaves you or a deal falls through. The ability to take that and use that as a motivator, not a demotivator. And that's a critical thing that I don't think people truly learn how to master. It's like every punch, every slight, every knock, every loss, everything is like a motivator to you, not a demotivator.
It's interesting. I do watch a lot of sports as well. I watched an interview with Brandel Chambly on the Golf Channel. I don't know if you guys watch golf or follow golf a little bit. And he said something that stuck with me very, very well. And I never thought about it until he articulated it this way. When you look at the athletes that are at the top of their profession and the peak of their career, a lot of them don't like themselves in that exact moment. And I went, oh, like you see in that interview with Jordan on The Last Dance, there's a spot where he got emotional because he knew he wasn't treating people right. Like he had to pause the freaking camera. And so they have this ability to turn this thing on and become a different version of themselves. And I'll say this, not because people don't aspire to be that, but be careful what you're wishing for, because you may become someone you don't like. Wow. So I played that game with myself and I'm like, dude, I'm not that. Like, I can't be that hard. So I think a lot of this is self-awareness too. So be very careful. I think we can change our habits and change some of the good things that we need to be doing. But be careful if you start playing mind tricks with yourself, because you may not like the version of yourself that comes through. And we work on that. So I'm trying to, if you guys have this figured out, like, how can I trick myself and like let that motivate me without actually changing?
Yeah, without losing the EQ and the, yes. And
that's what I'm seeking.
Oh man, I wish I could figure it out too. I've talked to, Dan, my brother, right? Yeah. I've talked to him about this as I go, what makes a lot of these great people, because we've just been so blessed to interview great people like you and surround ourselves with amazing people. And I just go, a lot of times they have the ability to basically, they lots of times people can't do what they need to do because they just are so concerned of what other people are thinking and so concerned of how they're coming across, and they don't want to be perceived poorly. And the ones who make it are able to turn that off. And unfortunately, what happens to them is, like the greatest salesmen, they're able to, hey, I can ask you for the order and make you uncomfortable because I know you're uncomfortable, but I know this uncomfortability is going to cause change for you and it's going to be beneficial. It's value driven. And so the greatest salespeople are able to do this. But what happens to a lot of these people is they get so good at turning that off that all of a sudden they lose touch with reality. And then they start mistreating people. The ultimate test is to be able to be such a hardcore leader, but at the same time, never lose your ability to actually relate to people and actually care about people. Empathize is maybe the right word. And I just look at these great, great leaders and you go, man, the greatest ones are the ones that are able to not care what other people think, but they do care about the person. If that makes sense. It's like, I don't care what you think, but I care about you. And it's more important because 9 times out of 10, you don't execute, you don't do what you're supposed to do because you care so much about the opinions or what's going to happen and what other people are thinking. And it's just such a hard balance. I haven't figured it out. It's such a hard balance. But the ones that are really, really great, you realize, that's what they're able to do. This has become a therapy session, and I appreciate this, Josh and Luke. You guys thought you were coming to get advice from me. I like the old saying, like, I may not be the most intelligent in the room, but at the end of the conversation, I'm going to be the most informed. I have another challenge where I get so committed to other people's success that it chews on me. Mm-hmm. It chews on me. You want it more than them?
I do.
Yeah.
I do. And I'm trying to figure out this other balance of like, let me provide what I see as the path and then just let that be what it is and they succeed or don't succeed. And I can't figure out that balance either of like, damn it, why aren't you, let's go. I got you, let's go. I just become so committed to that. And it actually drains me a little bit. It actually absorbs some of my energy. And I'm trying to find that balance too. You guys have that answer?
I wish I did. I will tell you what I've gotten to. The place I've gotten to is realizing that the definition of success is the most critical. So you want other people to be successful in your definition of success, and I do too, because you can't help it, right? And we just did a podcast on attracting your tribe, and a tribe is people of alignment of goal and common values. Yeah. And so this is why it's so important. I never understood the value of mission and vision statements and core values of an organization. It always felt like words on paper. Yeah, it always felt like that, right? Now I understand. Oh man, it has to be what you truly believe, and you have to live it. And it can evolve over time. It can change over time because you are the organization. It's a living organism, right? So it can evolve, but it has to be rock solid, because when you go and attract these people who are on your team that are coming into, they have to have that common characteristic, common core values, common like mind, because you'll find yourself wanting something different for them than they want. And it's just a sign that, hey, we're just not in alignment as an organization. It's not bad. It's just, our definition of success. Now, what I've come to learn is it's okay for people to have a different definition of success that, in my view, is not successful, right? So like, here's a perfect example. I have sales callers that have been with me for 4 years that can close 40 deals in a month, 50 deals in a month. And you should, on average, after you've been here with us for that long of time, you should be closing 40, 50 deals.
They can get 60.
But no, here's the thing. I have a caller that's closing 25 deals. Now, here's the reality. That caller is happy closing 25 deals. Their definition of success is being fulfilled. So I have a choice to make. The choice I have to make is okay, does it bring down the actual vision and mission of the organization and core values? Does it affect my culture? And two is, does it affect the bottom line economically? Do the numbers actually make sense? And what I found is, hey, the numbers actually make sense at 25. Right. Hey, the numbers make sense. It's okay. And it doesn't affect our culture in a negative way, like I was telling myself it did, because I actually looked into this and actually spent some time reflecting and realized, Luke, you're trying to enforce your version of success onto this person. And that's why you're churning people at a faster rate than you should, because dude, not everybody's going to be Michael Jordan. Some people on the team are going to be the people you don't remember. I hate to say it that way, but they supported the team. Who was the water boy on Michael Jordan's team? Tell me. I don't know. Who was Bobby
Boucher.
But anyway, it's a long tangential thought, but where I've come to realize is, like, Luke, you got to be okay with people's success at different levels, realizing the big determining factors, the vision and the mission, and making sure that is not getting hindered by their level of success. If that's getting hindered, they're on the wrong vehicle. They're on the wrong bus. Yeah. I got to get them off the bus. But if it's not hindering my vision and mission, then I need to be okay with that seat of the bus. Otherwise, I'm just going to be churning people and it's wasting my time. But
I love it.
I don't know if that makes any sense to you guys. But
this is good. I appreciate it. This is awesome.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. So, right, you have 18 agents. And here's a big struggle I see for leaders. They bring these agents in, they train them up, then the agent thinks they can do it better without you and not want the commission split, and they end up moving on. How do you attract agents to stay with you? And how do you think about leading from a culture perspective and from a motivation perspective, like we're talking about with these 18 team members that you have?
Well, part of it is I look at it like this. If you look at our industry and what you're specifically talking about is the revolving door of teams. Yep. Right? If we're just call it what you're asking about, you're talking about what seems to be a revolving door. I know that. I'm aware of that. What we've gotten pretty good at, not systematically, not with like a ABA or a DISC or anything like that, not the personality profile test. I've gotten really good at understanding who the person is just by reading people. 20 years of trying to create and build relationships. So one of the powers that we have, the superpowers, if you want to call it, is ability to understand who the person is before they come into the organization. I think protects against that revolving door. So the better I get at understanding who they are and whether I can actually help them is a big component of it. I'm not just looking for anybody that does deals. I look for people that I actually can provide value in their lives with. And if I can do that, they tend to stay around. And so when we get deep on life and self-awareness and happiness, that's the type of community that we've created. We've actually even hired out, we call it a happiness coordinator.
Wow.
Who just is there to make sure people are experiencing what they want to in their lives. So I consider this more of a life organization than a real estate company, right?
Wow.
That connectivity seems to do very, very well. And I've done it both ways. And also, I don't think I've got it figured out. I'm just working on it like everybody else. I've done it where you just bring in numbers and units and churn and churn and churn. That actually burns me out, regardless of whether the results are higher or not. I don't want a revolving door if I can help it. I draw energy from genuinely helping people move forward in their lives and just having them face that person in the mirror. So I need to be able to draw energy from them, and I need to be able to give them my energy as well. So it's that two-way street. Like, am I going to walk away from this conversation with this agent feeling energized and inspired? And are they going to feel the same thing? And by doing that, I think the connectivity becomes greater. People look at, I'm seeing it already because we're approaching the second half of the year. Business planning clinics coming up. We don't call ours a business planning clinic. Ours is a life planning clinic. What the F do you want to get out of life? And then we'll build the freaking vehicle.
That's
great.
So
that community understands. That's like, it's our core values. It's kind of who we are, right? Our beliefs, you were talking about it earlier. That's who we are. And then when you get the right type of people in the room, then they want to be around each other. Right. So now they want to be around each other. And when a lot of people are going virtual, downstairs in our office, you'll see 6 agents just hanging out at the table because they want to be around each other. And just trying to keep it connected in a deeper way is what I see as valuable. Whole nother conversation. That's just within my organization. And I'd like to change it on a brokerage level too. Right. Like, I think our industry's broken from how they view agents. Man,
it's like hanging
agents.
license on a roster, basically.
Yeah, man, yeah. It's messed up, and it has been for a while. Our system is broken, and I want to change it. I'd really like to change it in a much bigger arena, nationally, internationally. And I'm kind of tweaking behind the scenes to figure out how to do that at a grander level, just beyond the team.
That would be amazing, because I see the same pain point. Like, it doesn't help the agent, and it definitely doesn't help the consumer, because you're filling these rosters with mediocre agents that are not representing the industry well. And then those agents are failing at a super high rate because it was just about hanging the license and getting 1 deal, 2 deals out of them, or whatever, the fee. And it doesn't help anybody. I love your idea of it's your life. You know, what the F do you want out of life?
Yeah.
And most people go through life not even knowing what they want.
Like, they're never stopping to think about it.
Yeah. It's like they're like a leaf in the wind. They're just blown, like wherever life comes at them, it just blows them this way or that way. And then they feel like they're on a hamster wheel, and it's so sad.
Well, no one's ever actually sat down and talked to them about it. Literally. Parents, grandparents, there's no conversation around what do you want out of life. It doesn't happen in the schools. It doesn't happen at home. So, like, I'm not even blaming them. I'm just saying people don't have the conversation.
Agree, man.
And so, like, let's have it, man. Let's have the conversation and go from there.
Why does it not happen in schools? Like, everybody says the same thing. Like, why don't we teach freaking Tony Robbins and this type of mindset and all this stuff in school? Maybe it's just the academic world sees it as almost too borderline intangible, like hokey pokey, like type, like.
Well, yeah, I don't know that answer, and it's funny. I wrote a memoir for my family at one point in time called "This Is Your Captain Speaking."
That's awesome.
It was such a fun experience. And typically, when you write a book, you start to get the urge to write another book. And this is a thing that's percolating inside of me that I'm trying to figure out. I was like, how can we get this life conversation into younger children fast? And so, and I got 3 kids, and I don't even have that figured out yet, but damn it, I want to figure that out too. Yeah. Like, man, how can we, the book's got to be cool enough that they actually want to read it, but there's just got to be some tools and some takeaways that they can put into practice to really change the way we're thinking.
Did you ever take how old are your kids, by the way?
The twins, boy-girl twins that are 15, and an 11-year-old girl.
11, that's awesome, man. Congrats. Have you ever taken them to like a conference, like done like that? I've thought about that. My kids are really young, 2 and 4 months, basically. But I'm thinking, not right now. Can you imagine me with Evelyn at the conference? But I'm thinking to myself, maybe taking them to like some of these conferences to just get them in that ecosystem of hearing from these super successful people and stuff like that. I just wonder if that would help. I'd be interested.
That's
in
on
any
my
of the
agenda for sure. You know who does that pretty well, and you may have heard of this, but and I haven't been with Keller Williams for a long time, but back in the day, Keller Williams had a course called Quantum Leap.
Okay.
And that was my favorite course in that curriculum, which was about exactly what we're talking about. Gary Keller and nailed that. And then I believe it's now called KW Kids Can.
Oh, wow.
And he teaches young teenagers some of this stuff. And I will try and get my kids into that at some point in time.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. It's like getting your kids in that ecosystem, because it's such an important conversation that so few people are intentional about having and trying to get alignment. And
kids are interested in that. Like if you're sharing what you're learning, like that's what I would do. We would all, because my daughter's such a big reader. I'm a reader, so I'd always share with them what I'm reading. Or they're interested in stuff because we have this podcast. So like we're talking about things. They're like, "Oh, Dad, you have a podcast. Like, what did you talk about today?" I was like, "All right, well, here's what we talked about," and just kind of include that in the conversation. They are actually interested, and they do pick up on that stuff.
Yeah, it's cool. They're following people that I'll listen to. I'll just have stuff on the car, right? A different podcast or anything
exactly.
like that. And then you don't have to say anything. They just kind of sit there. And you just keep driving. You're kind of like looking over like this. Yeah, maybe he's listening, right? Yep. And then next thing you know, he's like, "Hey, Dad, did you see Sharon's post? The real president? Did you see his new post?" I'm like, "No, which one is that?" And of course, I saw it, right? So they start to follow people, and it's kind of cool, man. It is cool. They are very interested.
Yeah. That guy puts out great content, man.
He's speaking of leaders. I got the hat on. You guys can see the hat, right? It goes like this too, by the way. It's kind of cool.
That is pretty sick.
You see that hairline's receding. He's an amazing leader, and he is somebody that I believe is in the process of changing the industry with. Mm-hmm. And he's on a path, and he's somebody that I'm following. I get lucky enough to speak with him probably 2-3 times every other week.
Really, and man, that is amazing. Yeah.
He's truly amazing. And it's, when somebody's coming from the right spot with the right ideas and just like, leaders, you can see them. You're like, they're a magnet. You're like, whoop, that's my guy. And he's my guy. Yeah. And I think he will change our industry.
Yeah, he's a super successful serial entrepreneur. And, his content is phenomenal. I started following him, I think, after you guys' conference that I met you guys at. I started following him after that. And I was like, wow, I'm blown away by this guy. We'll have to try to get him on the podcast. Like
I'll hook you up. You want me to? I'll do it. Do you already have his email?
I don't have his email, no, just his Instagram.
I'll do an intro for you.
Love that.
And we'll see if we can make that happen.
Thanks. That would be amazing. Okay, so I got to ask you, because obviously you're a super successful mindset guy. Like, you face adversity. How do you overcome that adversity? What would you say to agents out there that are struggling right now that can't get over that hump? How do they get themselves motivated? How do they get their candle burning again? What's your thoughts?
A couple of thoughts. One, I think you constantly need to, not constantly, but frequently need to reinvent yourself, right? If you're doing something long enough for a long enough period of time, like it gets tiresome. It gets boring. So you got to find ways to keep yourself excited with the industry you're in. And whatever that means to you is whatever it means, like maybe a different form of lead generation, or maybe a different form of leadership within your own organization. Like, I'm having more fun 20 years in than I have been almost ever. Right. So, but that's because I'm constantly trying to figure out different things and different ways I can do stuff. The other thing, are you following this guy, Brian Johnson? He's got an app called Heroic. I'm just starting to tap into him. And his whole thing is, the harder it gets, you need to quadruple down on your effort. Like, the harder the grind, the more it feels like complicated and hard. He's like, quadruple the freaking effort. And so I'm going to try that out, because look, I go through the same pains and challenges everybody. I'm not done growing. I want to keep growing. So quadruple the effort. And he looks at a couple of different categories. It's energy, it's work, and it's love. And so it's not just one, like just work, quadruple the effort. But so I'm trying to figure that out. When you struggle, when you're in a slump, what's the answer to have a breakthrough? Well, I do know part of it. Like anytime we've ever had breakthroughs in our organization, it is honestly, guys, this is going to sound woo-woo, but anytime I've ever had a breakthrough or the team's had a breakthrough, we look inside and it becomes, how can I grow as a person?
Yes.
Like, how can I be a better father? How can I be a better husband? How can I be a better leader? And anytime I want to grow professionally, I grow personally first. So whatever the challenge is, it's a personal growth challenge. And so that's how I look at it.
That's
and
so good.
To me, that works.
Yeah, so good.
Thanks for coming on, man. We really appreciate it. Before we close out, let people know how they can connect with you.
Yeah, you can check me on Instagram. She's like Jason D. Martin 5. Same thing on Facebook. You guys want to do a call? We'll put a Calendly link in. You can book a one-on-one with me. No problem. Just happy to get to know everybody. And yeah, thanks for having me on, man. Awesome. You guys are awesome. I love your content, love what you're doing, and thank you for being who you are.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Jason. We're going to include those links in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening. You can get those show notes over at staypaidpodcast.com, as well as the video of this episode. And if you enjoyed this episode and want to show your support, hop on over to Apple Podcasts, drop us a 5-star review. We'd really appreciate it. And of course, the best way to show your support is to simply share this episode with somebody. If you want to get a hold of me or Luke, you can email us at podcast@remindermedia.com. And of course, you can follow us on social media as well. We are at Stay Paid Podcast. For this episode of Stay Paid, I'm Joshua Stike.
Guys, I'm Luke Akery. Jason, thank you so much, man. You are the real deal. Really appreciate you, brother. I love your energy, too, and your insight. So this is the first time I've really gotten to talk to you at length. So it's been awesome and a pleasure. Everybody who's listening to this, take advantage. I know you're going to put 5 or 10 spots on your calendar to actually talk to agents. We're going to put that calendar in the show notes. But this guy's the real deal. I mean, 18 agents on his team, the units he's doing, and then just how he thinks about the process. I would highly recommend that you guys connect with him. Hopefully I don't blow up your calendar too much, Jason, but appreciate it.
Go for it.
But here's my action item for everybody on this. And I'll kind of give you 2 action items because I want to give you something really tangible from a marketing standpoint, but then also tangible from a mindset standpoint. And most people we talked about, they go through life unintentional. They're not intentional about their life. They're not intentional about where they're going. They're not intentional about what they want. I want to challenge you today. Sit down and write down actually what you want. What you want. What do you want your life to look like, right? You hear all these great coaches, these great mentors talk about where do you see yourself in 20 years? Have you ever written that letter to yourself in 20 years? This is where I want to be. This is what I want my life to look like. It doesn't have to be 20 years. It could be next year. It could be 5 years. But take some time. That 10 minutes will be so worth it to put your life in perspective. And then second, get on video. I mean, this has got to be, I don't know, the 20th guest that is telling us that they are video, and it is starting to produce leads. And it makes so much sense. 60 to 70% of all the business comes from Sphere. Why do you get business from the Sphere? It's about a relationship. Why do you have a relationship? Because people know, like, and trust you. They got to know you somehow. Video is the one form of marketing that I see out there where people can get to know you in the way they kind of do face-to-face over a piece of marketing that email can't do, that a social media post can't do, that a piece of direct mail can't do. And Joshua and I are in this business. Like, we know this stuff. And so I would encourage you, get on video. And if you are nervous because you're like, I don't like the way I sound, don't like the way I look, get over it. It's the way you look, it's the way you sound. Get over it, because you got to go back to what you want. That's why it's so important, that action item of writing down what you want, because if what you want is big enough, what you want your life to look like for you and your friends and your family, then you'll get over the way you look and over the way you sound, and you'll actually start posting video. Remember, the difference between top producers and mediocre producers in every business is top producers take action. Take action on that today.